Hello and welcome to a episode of the Leroy blog for November 2022. Small disclaimer, this video may well contain triggers as we do talk about suicide, anxiety, depression, as well as things like substance abuse and a range of mental health difficulties that people face every day. So please, if you do go into this, do just be aware and make sure you look after yourself before and after, especially if that means talking to someone else and getting their support. Now, onto the vlog. Hello and welcome back to another episode of You Are Right, the Movember 2022 vlog for mental health and testicular cancer. I'm joined today by Leroy and we're going to be talking about a very specific concept around walk-in mental health centres. Now, I met Leroy 6 years ago, as he's just told me, at a place called Pause in Birmingham, which was a brand new idea to me, and it's still, I believe, inside a very new stage, but that's where I'm going to leave realistically over to Leroy to talk about. So I'll hand over to you, good sir.
Okay, so my name's Leroy McConnell, and I met Ryan, who's still, I would class as a young person, and I met him when I worked for the Children's Society, and I still do now. And we met in Birmingham, and the idea that Ryan has sort of introduced is the concept of a drop-in centre for anybody aged between 0 to 25 who is having an experience around emotional health and well-being. Now, the idea of a place where young people can walk into to get immediate support wasn't something that was developed by adults in the NHS or in a charity. It was a model that was created by young people, and Ryan was part of that group in helping create that model and make it actually happen. I think the issue with young people's emotional health and well-being has been, really been ignored for at least 2 decades in the time that I've been working in the emotional health and well-being and mental health space. And in order to change that, I think the Children's Society and Forward Thinking Birmingham felt it was important to listen to young people's views and consider what young people were saying about services that weren't meeting their needs. And together with young people, we created a model that was the drop-in centre. And the drop-in centre consists of having young people professionals. Some people like to say it needs to be a therapist, it needs to be a counsellor, it needs to be a youth worker. But what we felt was, along with young people, it's just a young person's professional, somebody who knows how to talk with young people, and they may have therapeutic skills, they may have counselling skills, they may have engagement skills, but what we're trying to do is not make a service that is skill specific, other than somebody who can speak with young people. And the idea is young people walk in, they talk to a professional or a person in the building, it could be a volunteer, whoever, they're trained, and they will provide them immediate support. And the reason why this model works is because there is no referral process, there is no waiting list, there is a matter of you as a young person getting up and walking to the building and going in, registering, having a chat, and hopefully leaving feeling a little bit better about the problems or the challenge that you've walked in about. Now, as a service, we've managed to create Pause in Birmingham, but out of Pause came a number of other services such as Sandwell Beam, which I manage, and Shropshire Beam, which is a service in Shropshire. And we've also got another service in Shropshire called Wellbeing Zone, which is a different type of service. It's a higher tiered service from your drop-in service. And then in Greater Manchester, we've got a service called Safe Zones, which is for young people who have had contact with crisis services.
So it's really all grown since day one. I mean, that's definitely, I remember the launch day, and then I remember going to events and you were speaking to people that, that they want to take this idea and go to their own, like we have Forward Thinking Birmingham here, they want to go to their own kind of mental health services and build this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Would you say, of course, you've been within the experience as well, that it's made a difference having that walk-in centre around, having those drop-in zones, if you will?
Yeah, I think all of the services, Pause, beams, the wellbeing zone and safe zones are all services that have listened to young people. But also, whilst listening to young people, we're looking at the data that exists out there. And the data tells us that a lot of adults who have accessed adult services talk a lot about if there'd been a service for me when I was in my teens that I could have accessed. I probably wouldn't have been as unwell as I have been. And that might be enduring poor mental health for 10, 15 years in their adulthood. That could be having circumstances in their lives that have had negative outcomes because of maybe they're feeling that they've had poor mental health, or their other outcomes may not have been achieved, like educational outcomes and family situations. So, you know, when you look at the anecdotal evidence and the data as well, and also, you know, people who have walked into our service in their 30s and 40s and gone, I wish this was here for me when I was younger. It kind of looks at, you know, the kind of community service that we're trying to deliver does work for young people. We've had young people who have accessed our service and come back 6 months later and handed us gifts and cards and thanks and hugs. And I think that in itself is enough when we know that it works, because people do come back. I think when I visited our service yesterday, a young person had visited the week before. I was off on leave last week and came back in with a handwritten card and drawn some horses and coloured in some hearts for us as a thank you. And I just think, you know, those small incremental steps that young people and parents see in people's development who they care for is really important, and that's massive for us. And that's why we want to continue to develop services like this and grow them across the country if possible.
Something that, you know, you've said a few times now when talking about the services, which I also believe is a very key thing about this entire idea, is the fact that it was thought of by young people. And then it was, of course, in the early stages, supported by young people. And then all the way throughout, it's been supported by young people. By the sound of it, it's still actively supported by young people, including the Children's Society. Of course, I had a bit of work to do with them, and they have their own young trustee board because they want to be associated with young people. And I think it's really vital that, you know, that we recognize that actually out there in the world, it's all good these people at the top making decisions, but they need to listen to realistically the people on the ground that they're trying to help.
I think your point is really quite poignant, because I think the way I look at it sometimes is I've worked in a number of charities, local authorities, NHS trusts in various positions. And I think if you look at your audience who you're serving as customers, and we want their customer experience to be really great. And one of the things that we do when we maybe go to a restaurant or a cafe, we go and look at reviews. And how I feel about a review will be different to how you feel about a review. And I think young people as customers are in the best position to help design the restaurant, help review the restaurant and choose the staff there, but equally they're able to tell everybody else whether the restaurant's any good. And word of mouth recommendations is what a lot of people talk about, and I value that. And I think sometimes within big organizations that small view isn't factored in enough. And one of the things I advocate quite strongly about is young person's voice, young people's engagement, consultation, and taking them on the whole journey. Because I think it's really important that young people see that their voice is heard, listened to, and acted upon. And any of the services that I've worked in, that's a real strong point for me. I need to make sure that happens consistently.
And I think consistency is definitely seen, especially as, like you spoke about the growth earlier, and you've now got Shropshire, you've now got Manchester. At the centre of those have been young people, because it all grows from that original project. And I mean, someone had to take the step and the jump, really, because of course Pause was a blindside shot. This could really backfire, and we could definitely allocate wrong resources, and then it didn't. It did increasingly well. And then, of course, it survived the pandemic, which I think is the key thing. I know that a lot of people during the pandemic, suffered a lot worse with their mental health. And it was good that these services were there when they reopened, even though if it's in a restricted capacity or whatever, while we were going through the COVID time, and then there's still restrictions out there, although, you know, we're moving forward. I mean, it's June when we're recording this, and it's nice to think it's gone, but it's never going to be completely gone, I don't think. But it's definitely made a difference. And like you said earlier, those people that come back, yeah, you know, well, thank you, because it's made this difference. They're the key points to show this works.
Yeah, and I think, you know, at times when people say you've actually saved my life, I think even if we've opened the building and it's been open for 6 years or whatever, or any of the services, you save one life, that's a win. And I think that's massive. And, you know, all services are going to be under pressure around austerity, showing results. But sometimes it's not always about numbers, it's about impact. And if that impact is on one life, 300 lives, 3,000 lives, so be it. But we have impact.
And the impact definitely makes the difference.
Yeah.
Because we also have, then, is like you said, the word of mouth knock-on effect. And I think there's more than just the word of mouth knock-on effect. There's the knock-on effect of, you see one young person, you talk to them, they tell someone else about the place, and they also talk about their experience and what they're now doing to feel better. That person they speak to may then practice what they've just been told, may come and see you, but actually, even if they don't, they practice what they've been told and they feel better. If one person tells three, you see how this blooms, and actually you create a support network with, say, you know, you've got this walk-in mental health centre at the centre, and then you've got all the drop-in centres or anything like that, and you've inadvertently created a massive support network of people telling people strategies.
And that's the idea of community growth and development. You know, one person has an experience, they share it, other people buy into it. You know, this model doesn't work for everybody, and there are lots of people who will say this doesn't work for me because I just want to speak to Ryan. Every time I come in, I want to speak to Ryan. And in the drop-in model, we can't have just one person allocated to one member of the team, because they might not be there all the time. And what that means is you'll have to come back another time. So we always explain to all of our young people that you may not work with the same person often, but that's part of the model. It's part of the way that we want to build resilience within communities, resilience within young people, so that they can sort of realize that they have the abilities, once they're taught the skills, they have the ability to recover, to manage, to cope in life.
And again, yeah, that's now, it's looking outside the scope of just, we're here to help you with your mental health, and we're here to talk about that. That's them building their soft skills, their life skills, their employability skills. And actually, you know, you can take someone that, you know, a young person that may be shy in a corner, that may be having a lot of stuff going on in their life, and then they feel like they've got the confidence to go and get themselves a flat at 18 and go and take on that independence and give it a shot, because they've gone from, you know, this 1-to-1 to this 1-to-3, and then maybe 1-to-5, and now I'm happy talking to people, and people can talk to me, and we can share these experiences. Which, you know, I've been there myself. I went through, when Pause was open, I visited Pause both as a person, you know, with Pause, and as a young person visiting Pause. And I can definitely say from number one experience that I then told a lot of people about my experiences there, and that actually, you know, I spoke to people. I met you, of course, Dave as well, who's part of this project in 2 videos, so you get to meet him there as well. You know, and then I met everyone else that came from that, and I'm still in contact with a lot of them. And like we said, 6 years, but it really does breed a community, and it's not just a community; it's a community of well-being.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we're all trying to challenge stigma with this type of work, and I think we're trying to challenge the idea that there's no need to feel ashamed if you're having problems. Everybody has problems, but what the challenge is how you deal with these problems when they're in front of you. And I think a lot of people feel embarrassed because they may be looking at the world through a screen and seeing everybody else's world is so perfect, so polished and so glossy, when really it actually isn't the truth. And, you know, growing is hard. Growing up is hard. I'm still growing up now.
And you ever truly grow up, do you? Just sort
No.
of, you learn how to do the next step.
Yeah.
Well, one of the best things I've heard recently, just about that next step, especially dealing with it is, don't think 5 years. If you're struggling, think, I just have to do this one more day. If I can get through one more day every day, then
That's it. That's it. Every day can be a fight for many people.
yeah.
And you got to be prepared to get your tools ready to fight. And it can be hard, it can be challenging, but it's the capacity is there, the potential is there.
As I bring this kind of down to a finish, this video, is there any final statements you'd like to make around anything?
If you're a young person, young anybody, young adult or adult, find somebody that you can speak to, and find somebody that when you speak to them, they can just listen. Because listening, I feel, is one of the hardest jobs in the world, because everybody wants to fix everybody else, but most people just want to be listened to and heard. And I think once you have got somebody to listen to you, then it's about, okay, I've got that person. It might be a professional, it might be a friend, it might be a colleague. Once they listen, it's then about you taking further action, because you've taken the first step, you found somebody who can listen to you. The next step is about doing something after that listening's happened. And I think if there's anything, if there's a takeaway, find that person, find those people, because you can't, like you said earlier, you develop a community, and that network creates strength. And once you've got that strength around you, you can do anything.
Thank you, Leroy, for joining me for this. It's been both wonderful to talk to you and to talk about this matter. And I'm sure that, even if one person that watches this takes something away, as you said, it's a success. Yeah. And for people that are watching this, you might not have someone to talk to. So there is going to be a link, depending where you're watching it, there will be a link to the Samaritans, and you can speak to them, and they are on hand to support you as and when you need. Again, thank you once more, Leroy, for being here. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the people do as well.
Thank you for inviting me, sir. Good to see you.
And you. And I'll leave the rest of you with your day. I'll be back tomorrow morning with another one of these. So, yeah, I'll see you then. Goodbye, guys, and have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching that Leroy blog. It's been a phenomenal journey that we've been on to get this far, and we're hoping that it will long outlive the vlog series. But it's not over there. There is more to be done, and there is a donation link to the Movember charity inside the description. If you can donate, please do consider it, or even if you can just spread that link far and wide, get as many people to donate as possible, that's also fantastic. We are actively making a change, and you're part of that. So thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.